73% of C-suite executives report chronic sleep deprivation affecting their decision-making quality. Yet not one of them has a framework to fix it. They optimize everything except the one thing that drives everything. That changes today. You've built your career on discipline, on showing up, on pushing through. That mentality got you to the executive suite. But the same mindset that drove your ascent is now systematically eroding your judgment, your creativity, and your health. According to recent 2025 research from McKinsey, executives who report poor sleep quality make decisions 31% slower and show 23% lower strategic thinking capability. You're not failing. Your operating system is failing. And you don't even realize it's happening until the cost shows up in board meetings, in your relationships, in your health markers. The irony is sharp. You've studied game theory, Porter's 5 forces, blue ocean strategy. You've mastered competitive analysis. But you've never been taught the mental models that govern your own nervous system, your energy allocation, or your cognitive capacity under sustained pressure. You're running Fortune 500 level complexity on consumer-grade personal operating instructions. Over the next 8 minutes, you're going to learn 3 mental models that separate executives who sustain peak performance from those who burn out. These aren't wellness platitudes. These are decision frameworks based on neuroscience and organizational behavior research, tested across high-performing leaders in Singapore, India, and the broader Asia-Pacific region. We'll start with the energy portfolio model, which teaches you to audit your work like a portfolio manager audits capital. Then the decision tree under fatigue, which explains why your judgment deteriorates and how to protect it. Finally, the recovery velocity framework, which shows you why passive rest doesn't work and what actually restores your cognitive edge. By the end, you'll have a concrete operating system for managing your own mental and physical capital. Not motivation, not willpower, architecture. The first model is the energy portfolio. Most executives think energy is binary. You either have it, or you don't. You're either on or off. That's wrong. Energy has distinct buckets: physical energy, emotional energy, mental energy, and what we call strategic energy, which is your capacity for long-term decision-making. Here's the evidence. A 2026 study from the Deloitte Asia Pacific Leadership Outlook tracked 450 senior leaders across Singapore, Hong Kong, and India for 18 months. Leaders who actively managed all 4 energy types showed 42% lower burnout rates and 38% higher promotion velocity compared to peers who focused only on output. The model works like this. Every meeting, every decision, every email costs you from 1 or more buckets. A difficult personnel conversation burns emotional energy. A technical deep dive burns mental energy. A budget review under pressure burns all 4. The problem is most executives never track which bucket is depleting. Real example. A chief operating officer at a Singapore-based manufacturing conglomerate was running 14 strategic initiatives while managing a 2,000-person team. She felt perpetually exhausted despite sleeping 7 hours. We audited her energy portfolio. Her mental and physical energy was stable. Her emotional energy was catastrophically depleted. She was making every conversation about control instead of trust because she literally had no emotional reserves left. The fix wasn't more sleep. It was moving her one-on-ones from daily to twice weekly and delegating emotional labor to her leadership team. Within 4 weeks, her strategic energy returned, and she redesigned a critical supply chain initiative she'd been too depleted to tackle. Application. Audit your week. For each major commitment, assign it to one of the 4 buckets: mental, emotional, physical, or strategic. Where are you over-investing? Where are you letting buckets go empty? Your energy portfolio is your actual capital. Treat it like one. The second model is the decision tree under fatigue. Executive decisions rarely happen at full cognitive capacity. You're fatigued. You're compromised. The question is whether you know it. Research published in the 2025 Harvard Business Review study of 280 corporate decisions found that decisions made by executives in the bottom quartile of sleep quality were 18% more likely to miss critical risk factors and 26% more likely to result in unintended strategic consequences within 6 months. Here's what happens neurologically. When your prefrontal cortex is fatigued, your amygdala and threat detection systems become hyperactive. You see risks that aren't there. You miss risks that are. You default to faster, more emotional decision-making rather than systematic analysis. The mental model protects against this. Before any major decision, ask 3 questions in order. 1. Am I operating from my normal cognitive baseline? If the answer is no, move to question 2. 2. Does this decision need to be made today? If the answer is no, sleep on it and move the decision. If the answer is yes, move to 3. 3. What specific checks and balances can I add to reduce the risk of poor judgment? This might mean a trusted advisor reviews your logic. It might mean you build in a mandatory 48-hour reflection period. It might mean you require written dissent from your team. Example from India. A managing director at a mid-cap pharmaceutical company was running on 4 hours of sleep for 3 consecutive weeks due to a regulatory crisis. In that state, he approved a 120 million rupee R&D partnership with a vendor his team had flagged for compliance concerns. He was sleep-deprived and emotionally heightened by the crisis, so he skipped his normal due diligence architecture. The partnership failed within 5 months. The loss was partially recovered, but the reputational cost was significant. He now uses the decision tree model. During the same regulatory crisis 2 years later, he flagged his own cognitive state and pushed major vendor decisions to a point when he could operate at baseline. He maintained his decision quality. His reputation stayed intact. Application. Document your own decision tree. What does baseline feel like for you? What are your personal markers of fatigue? Identify 3 to 4 decisions you make monthly that have asymmetric downside risk. For those decisions specifically, implement your 3-question protocol. This isn't bureaucracy. It's architecture for protecting judgment when you're most vulnerable. The third model is recovery velocity. Most executives believe recovery is passive. You rest. You recover. You take a vacation. You come back recharged. That's why executives take 2 weeks off in Southeast Asia, check email the entire time, and return more exhausted than they left. Active recovery is different. It's about deliberately shifting your nervous system from sympathetic activation into parasympathetic dominance. According to a 2026 study by the World Economic Forum that tracked 600 senior leaders across the Asia-Pacific region, executives who implemented structured recovery protocols showed 34% faster cognitive restoration and 41% better sustained focus in weeks following high-stress periods compared to those who took passive time off. The model has 3 components. First, physiological decoupling. This means doing something that requires different neural systems than your work. if your work is strategic thinking and people leadership. Physiological decoupling might be something like swimming, hiking, or practicing an instrument. Not email, not industry news. Something that activates a completely different circuit. Second, social decoupling. This means spending intentional time with people outside your professional ecosystem. Your family, old friends, communities. Not work dinners, not board meetings. Actual relationships where you're not translating yourself into your executive persona. Third, psychological decoupling. This is about creating a daily micro-recovery ritual that anchors you. For some executives, it's a 10-minute meditation before leaving the office. For others, it's a non-negotiable dinner boundary or a morning walk without any devices. Real example. A chief financial officer from Bangalore was running at a 65-hour work week with minimal recovery structure. She felt constantly depleted despite having intellectual stimulation and status. We implemented the 3-component model. Physiological decoupling was tennis 3 mornings a week before work. Social decoupling was a standing dinner with university friends 1 evening per week. Psychological decoupling was a 15-minute device-free buffer between finishing work and dinner with her family. Within 6 weeks, her energy markers improved significantly. Within 12 weeks, she found she could work fewer hours and deliver better analysis. Her recovery velocity accelerated because her recovery was active, not passive. Application. Pick one physiological activity that genuinely interests you, not one you think you should do. Schedule it weekly and treat it like a board meeting. Identify 3 to 4 relationships outside work you want to invest in. Create a standing commitment with at least one. Finally, design one daily micro-recovery ritual. 10 minutes. 15 minutes. Non-negotiable. Thanks for listening. If you found this valuable, please subscribe to Apex Minds D4J for more powerful insights. See you in the next one.